The city of Okuru was alive, as always, with the sound of commerce and ambition. The streets sang with the honking of kiki napep and buses, the shouts of traders, and the aroma of roasted corn and suya. It was a place where the sun never seemed to rest, where dreams were built on the back of hard work, and where a man's worth was measured by his success. Among the young men of Okuru, Chike was regarded as a shining example of success. At just 32, he had climbed his way from being the son of a poor widow in Umuoji village to a respected bank manager at one of the biggest banks in the city. His colleagues admired his dedication, his friends envied his sharp suits, polished shoes, and the confidence with which he walked. But perhaps the proudest person of all was Adanna, his girlfriend of 3 years. Adanna was the kind of woman men turned to look at twice. Her skin was as smooth as freshly pounded yam, her eyes sharp like a hawk's, and her figure the perfect hourglass. She carried herself with the poise of a queen, always dressed in the latest lace, girly, and designer handbags. To Adanna, life was a marketplace, and she wanted nothing but the finest goods. "Chike, my love, you know I cannot be attending parties with you when you wear these cheap suits," she said one evening, as they sat at a fancy lounge in Okuru. She was stirring her Chapman drink absent-mindedly, her perfectly manicured nails gleaming. Chike chuckled, adjusting his tie. "Adanna, this suit cost me 50,000 naira. Is that cheap?" She sighed dramatically. "Babe, 50,000 is what women spend on shoes these days. You're a bank manager, you should dress like a king." Chike smiled, but deep down, her words always made him feel like he wasn't doing enough. Adanna had a way of making every success feel like just the beginning of something bigger. Yet, Chike loved her deeply. He believed that one day, when he married her, she would understand the true meaning of building a home together. Back in Umuoji village, Mama Chinyere, Chike's mother, had a different opinion of Adanna. She was a small, wiry woman with hands hardened by years of farming. Her eyes, though old, were sharp with wisdom. "Chike, I don't trust that girl," she had told him during her last visit to the city. "A woman who values a man for his pocket will not stay when the pocket is empty. Look for a woman who will share in your struggles and not just your success." "Mama, you don't know Adanna like I do," Chike had said, smiling. "She stood by me when I was still climbing. She is not that kind of woman." Mama Chinyere had sighed. My son, time will tell. A man only knows his friends when the fire burns." Chike's rise was not without effort. He had started as a teller, working long hours, often sleeping in the office to meet deadlines. His dedication caught the attention of the regional manager, and within 6 years, he was promoted to the prestigious post of branch manager. People in his neighborhood respected him, often calling him Odigu, a title reserved for powerful men. Every Sunday, Chike and Adanna would attend service at a large church in Okuru. They always sat in the front row, dressed like royalty. Adanna loved the attention. She loved it when other women whispered, "That's the bank manager and his beautiful girlfriend." For her, Chike's status was a crown she wore with pride. But fate, as the elders say, is like the harmattan wind. It comes when you least expect it, carrying with it both dust and change. One Thursday afternoon, during a routine audit, Chike's branch was rocked by a scandal. A huge financial irregularity was discovered, millions missing, accounts tampered with. Although Chike was innocent, as the branch manager, he bore the weight of responsibility. Within a week, he was suspended, pending investigation. The news spread quickly. Newspapers carried headlines like, "Bank manager under probe for missing funds." Neighbors who once hailed him as Odigu now whispered behind his back. Adanna, too, changed almost overnight. "Chike, how could this happen? You mean all this time, you were not as careful as I thought?" she asked, her voice dripping with anger and fear. "It's not my fault," Chike said, pacing in his apartment. "There's a syndicate in the bank, and I'm being used as the scapegoat. I'll clear my name." Adanna crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. Clear your name. Do you know how embarrassing this is for me? People are asking me if I knew you were into fraud. Chike stopped pacing, looking at her with shock. Adanna, you think I'm a fraud? She hesitated, then looked away. I don't know what to think anymore. Maybe I don't know you as well as I thought. That night, as Chike lay in bed, he felt a storm rising inside him. The city that once seemed to embrace him now felt like a trap. He thought of his mother's warning, and for the first time, doubt gnawed at his heart. Within 2 weeks of Chike's suspension, Adanna stopped visiting. Her calls became less frequent, and when she did pick up, she always had an excuse: her appointments, parties, a busy schedule. Then, one fateful evening, Chike decided to surprise her at her apartment. What he found shattered him. Adanna was laughing on the balcony with Chief Ego, one of the richest men in Okuru, a man old enough to be her father, but famous for spoiling young women with money and gifts. Adanna, what is this? Chike asked, his voice shaking as he stepped onto the balcony. She froze for a moment, then composed herself, her chin lifting defiantly. Chike, you shouldn't come here uninvited, she said coldly. Chief Ego smirked, leaning on his cane. Young man, I think it's time you realize that a woman like Adanna deserves a man who can provide for her. You are no longer capable. Chike's heart broke as Adanna looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Chike, I can't keep living like this, she muttered. I can't stay with a man who has no future. No future. Chike repeated, his voice cracking. Adanna, is that all I am to you, a wallet? Chike, don't make this harder than it is, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I've made my choice. That night, Chike walked the streets of Okuru like a ghost. The bright lights of the city mocked him, and the laughter from bars and clubs sounded like cruel taunts. He thought of everything he had done for Adanna, the gifts, the sacrifices, and yet, in his darkest hour, she had thrown him away like an old newspaper. Chike didn't take a taxi home that night. He walked. The wind was heavy, filled with the smell of rain and dust from the roads, but he didn't care. His mind was a battlefield, images of Adanna's cold face, Chief Ego's mocking smile, and Mama Chinya's words replayed like a drumbeat. A man only knows his friends when the fire burns, Mama had said. Now, he understood. He walked past Ogbit Market, where traders were closing for the night. A woman frying akara near the junction called out, Manager Chike, you no go buy small akara today. He forced a weak smile, waving her off. Once, that title, manager, had made him proud. Now, it felt like a bitter reminder of all he had lost. By the time he reached his apartment, it was past 10 p.m. Sitting on the steps outside was Ebuka, his childhood friend. Ebuka was a stark contrast to Chike, broad-shouldered, with hands always greasy from his work as a mechanic. Yet, he had a heart of gold. Guy, where you dey since? Ebuka asked, standing up quickly. I hear wetin happen between you and Adanna. Not true say she don't follow Chief Ego. Chike didn't answer immediately. He dropped his keys on the wooden table inside, sat on the couch, and buried his face in his palms. Ebuka walked in and sat beside him. Chike, I tell you say that girl no pure. You no gree here. See am now. Chike looked up, his eyes red. Ebuka, I loved her, bro. I thought she was my future. Ebuka sighed and clapped his shoulder. Women like Adanna know they love man, no pocket them love. But forget am. You go rise again. You be lion, and lion no dey fear fall. Chike chuckled faintly despite his pain. Ebuka always had a way of making even the darkest nights seem less heavy. The next morning, the newspapers screamed fresh headlines about Chike's suspension. His neighbors avoided him, as if his misfortune was contagious. One man even muttered, see as pride done humble am. Chike tried to visit his bank to clear his name, but the security guards at the gate treated him like a criminal. "Sorry, Oga Manager, we get orders from above. You no fit enter." Those words stung. Just a few weeks ago, he had been the boss they saluted every morning. Now, he was just Chike, a fallen man. 2 days later, Mama Chinya arrived in Okuru. She came with a small raffia bag and a wrapper tied over her shoulder. The moment she saw her son, she wrapped him in her arms. "Chike, my son, no cry. When the wind blows, the tree with strong roots will stand." "Mama, I don't know what to do," Chike said, his voice heavy. "They've taken everything from me. Adanna left me. Everyone is talking. I feel like a failure." Mama Chinya cupped his face in her rough hands. "My son, the yam that grows big was once small. This is not the end. A man's life is not measured by how he falls but by how he stands after falling." She cooked him bitter leaf soup that evening, the way she used to when he was a boy. As they ate, she told him stories of his late father, who had once lost everything to a flood but rebuilt his farm with his bare hands. "Your father was a man of honor. You carry his blood. No woman, no job, no gossip can take that from you," she said firmly. A week later, Ebuka invited Chike to Umuoji Cultural Festival back in their village. "Guy, you need fresh air. Make we go village for weekend. E go clear your head. And who knows? Maybe better things they wait you there." Chike was reluctant, but Mama Chinya encouraged him. "Go, my son. Sometimes the road to healing starts from home." On the morning of their journey, Chike looked at himself in the mirror. The once confident bank manager now stood with rough stubble, tired eyes, and a heart still bleeding from betrayal. But somewhere deep inside, a spark remained. He remembered his father's favorite proverb: "The sun sets only to rise again." As he boarded the bus to Umuoji with Ebuka, he didn't know that this trip would mark the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one that no job or woman could define. The bus rumbled along the dusty road that led to Umuoji. Chike sat by the window, watching the scenery shift from the tall buildings of Okuru to the open fields and red earth of the countryside. Each mile they traveled seemed to peel away the weight of the city's noise and the whispers of his downfall. Ebuka, sitting beside him, kept humming a high-life tune, his broad shoulders swaying slightly with the rhythm. "Guy, you go thank me later," Ebuka said, turning to him with a grin. "Village life go clear all this wahala for your head. No woman way go stress you here. Only fresh air and festival vibes." Chike managed a small smile. "I just need peace, Ebuka. My mind has been like a storm since all this started." "Peace you go get," Ebuka assured, tapping his shoulder. "And who knows? Maybe something better they wait for you. Life no day finish." When they arrived at Umuoji, the festival spirit was already in the air. The scent of roasted yam, palm wine, and fried plantains greeted them as they stepped off the bus. Women in bright wrappers and men in Isiagu shirts moved about with excitement, preparing for the cultural displays. The sound of drums, flutes, and distant singing filled the evening breeze. Mama Chinya was waiting near the village square. Her face lit up when she saw her son. "Chike, no. Welcome home, my son," she said, wrapping him in a hug. "See a city waller don't slim you. But no worry, village food go fatten you back." Chike chuckled softly. "Mama, I missed your food already. Okuru no get your kind of bitter leaf soup." Later that night, they gathered by the fire as the villagers prepared for the big day. Ebuka, always full of stories, entertained the children with tales of tortoise and the gods, while Mama Chinya sat beside Chike, her hand resting on his knee. "Chike," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of years, "this festival is not just about dancing or eating. It is a time to remember who we are, where we come from. Do not let the city make you forget your roots." "I won't, Mama," he replied, staring into the fire. The flames seemed to whisper promises of renewal. The next morning, the festival came alive. The entire village gathered at the square, decorated with palm fronds and flowers. Dancers in colorful attire moved to the rhythm of the talking drum. The air vibrated with the sound of flutes, cheers, and laughter. Chike, dressed in a simple white traditional outfit with a red cap borrowed from Ibuka, felt something stir in his soul, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. Among the crowd, his eyes caught sight of a young woman he had never seen before. She was carrying a basket of flowers to decorate the chief's throne. Her skin glowed like the morning sun, and her smile was warm, unpretentious, so different from Adanna's polished but distant beauty. For a moment, their eyes met, and she gave a shy nod before continuing her task. "Who's that?" Chike whispered to Ibuka, who was busy chewing roasted corn. "Oh, that's Nneka," Ibuka said. "She just came back from Enugu to help her family for the festival." No correct village girl, no wahala, no big grammar. Chike felt a small, unfamiliar spark inside him. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something different. Something real. As the festival dances slowed, the women began laying out colorful mats for the feast. Chike found himself standing at the edge of the crowd, watching Nneka as she moved gracefully between the decorations. She wore a simple yet beautiful Ankara gown that stopped just above her ankles, her bare feet dusted with the red earth of the village. A single beaded necklace hung around her neck, and her hair was plaited in neat cornrows with tiny cowries woven in. "Guy, your eyes don't hook there," Ibuka teased, nudging Chike with his elbow. "Go talk to her before another man collect a chance." Chike gave a faint laugh. "It's not like that. I'm just admiring the festival spirit." Ibuka rolled his eyes. "Festival spirit, ABI. See as you dey look like person wey don drink palm wine for the first time. Go, abeg." Chike hesitated. The sting of Adanna's betrayal still felt raw, and the idea of speaking to another woman felt strange. But something about Nneka's calm presence drew him in. She didn't carry the loud confidence of city women. Instead, there was a quiet strength in her eyes. He walked slowly toward her. Nneka was arranging flowers around the wooden arch where the dancers would later perform. She noticed his approach and paused, giving him a polite smile. "Good afternoon," Chike said, his voice steady but gentle. "Good afternoon," she replied, bowing her head slightly in greeting. "You must be Ibuka's friend from the city. He mentioned you when we were setting up earlier." Chike raised his brows slightly. "Oh, he's already talking about me." Nneka laughed softly, a sound like the tinkling of a bell. "He just said you came to the village for fresh air." Chike smiled faintly. "Fresh air and, maybe a bit of peace." Nneka's gaze softened. "You'll find peace here, if you let yourself. Umuoji has a way of healing people. The land itself feels alive sometimes." For a moment, they both stood in silence, the distant beat of drums filling the gap between their words. Chike found himself studying the simple way she carried herself, how her beauty seemed untouched by pretense or expectation. "Can I help you with that?" he asked, pointing to the basket of flowers she was still holding. She hesitated, then handed him a small bunch. "You can place these around the arch, like this." She demonstrated, and he followed her lead. Their fingers brushed briefly, and Chike felt an unexpected warmth spread through him. "You're doing well for a city man," she said with a playful smile. He chuckled. "I guess not everything from the village is lost on me." As they walked side by side, Ibuka watched from a distance, grinning and shaking his head. "Nor so ide start," he muttered to himself. "City heartbreak go turn village love." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the village square came alive with firelight. Palm fronds tied to bamboo poles swayed gently, casting dancing shadows over the crowd. The air was thick with the aroma of roasted goat meat, spicy suyo, and palm wine. The talking drums quickened, summoning everyone to the heart of the celebration. Chike, now seated beside Ibuka and Mama Chinye, could not take his eyes off Nneka. She had changed into a brighter Ankara wrapper, with coral beads around her neck and wrist. The firelight made her skin glow like polished mahogany, and her laughter carried across the square like music. "Guy, if you no stand up now, another man go dance with her," Ebuka teased, sipping from a gourd of palm wine. "No village festival oh. No dull yourself." Chike shook his head, smiling faintly. "Ebuka, you know I don't dance." "Who talk say you go dance? Just stand beside her, hold hand." "Nor that one day sweet pass," Ebuka replied, his grin mischievous. Mama Chinyere, who had been listening quietly, leaned in. "My son, you've been too quiet since Adanna left. This life is like a calabash, if it breaks, we carve another one. Open your heart, eh? Nneka seems like a good girl." Chike exhaled slowly. His mother's words sank deep. Maybe, just maybe, life was giving him another chance. Soon, the drummers began a rhythm that made even the elders tap their feet. The young women, their wrappers tied elegantly around their waists, moved in graceful sync, their hips swaying in time with the flute. Men clapped along, cheering and singing traditional call and response songs. Chike spotted Nneka dancing in the circle with other young women. She moved with a confidence that was natural and unforced, her feet tracing the steps like she'd been born with the drumbeat inside her. For a moment, Chike felt a stirring inside him, a joy he hadn't felt since before the scandal, before Adanna's betrayal. He stood up, almost without realizing it, and walked toward her. Nneka noticed him and slowed her steps, a small, surprised smile curving her lips. "You," she said softly, as though teasing. "I thought you don't dance." "I don't," Chike admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "But maybe tonight I'll just try." She laughed, the sound light and free. "All right, city man. Follow me." Before he could think twice, she took his hand and guided him into the circle. The crowd cheered, some clapping, others whistling. Chike's steps were awkward at first, but Nneka's laughter and gentle guidance made him relax. For those few minutes, he forgot the headlines, the whispers, and the pain. All he saw was the firelight, the dance, and Nneka's bright smile. As the music slowed, they stepped out of the circle, breathing heavily but laughing together. Ebuka winked at him from afar. Mama Chinyere's knowing smile said everything. This was the start of something new. The following morning, the village was quieter. The echoes of drums and laughter from the festival had faded, leaving behind a serene calm. The sun rose slowly over Umuoji, bathing the red earth in a golden glow. Chike, still feeling the warmth of the previous night's dance, woke early. He needed space to think about his future, about Nneka, and about the man he wanted to become now that his city life had crumbled. He stepped out of Mama Chinyere's compound, the soft crunch of sound beneath his feet, and followed the narrow footpath leading to the river. It was a path he hadn't walked in years, since his boyhood. The trees bent slightly with the morning breeze, their branches whispering secrets of the past. As he reached the riverbank, he stopped short. Nneka was there. She sat on a smooth rock, washing vegetables in a calabash bowl. Her wrapper was tied neatly around her chest, her cornrows glistening with morning dew. She looked up when she heard footsteps and smiled. "Oh, city man," she said, her voice playful yet soft. "You're up early." Chike chuckled, scratching his chin. "I could ask you the same. Do you always start your day by the river?" "Yes," she replied, rinsing the vegetables. "The river is alive. It gives peace. When the world becomes too noisy, I come here to listen." Chike looked at the calm surface of the water, his reflection rippling. "I think I understand. Lately, my world has been nothing but noise, accusations, gossip, betrayal." Nneka paused, studying his face. "Ebuka told me a little about what happened in the city." "I'm sorry, Chike. But, sometimes, life needs to break us so we can see what truly matters." Her words struck him like a soft arrow, finding the place in his heart that still bled. "Tell me," he said after a moment of silence, "how do you stay so calm? You talk as if nothing in this world can shake you." Nneka laughed gently. "It's not that nothing shakes me. I just learned early that money and power can come and go. But character, kindness, and peace of mind, those are treasures no one can take." Chike gazed at her, something shifting deep inside him. In the city, women like Adanna measured a man's worth by his bank account. Nneka, on the other hand, spoke as if life's true worth had nothing to do with what one owned. As they talked, the village children ran past, splashing water and laughing. Nneka smiled, her eyes following them. "Life should be this simple, Chike. Even when the river floods, it always finds a way to flow again." Her words echoed the proverb his father once told him, "The sun sets only to rise again." For the first time in weeks, Chike felt a strange but welcome peace. Chike walked back from the river with a strange lightness in his heart. The conversation with Nneka had left a mark on him, like the first fresh breath after a heavy rainfall. Her simplicity, her quiet wisdom, reminded him of everything he had lost sight of in Okuru's fast-paced world. When he entered Mama Chinyo's compound, his mother was sitting under the mango tree, peeling yam for the morning meal. She looked up and smiled knowingly. "Where did you wander off to, my son?" she asked, her tone gentle but laced with curiosity. "The river," Chike replied, dropping onto a low wooden stool. "I needed to clear my head." Mama Chinyo's sharp eyes narrowed, a sly smile tugging at her lips. "And did you find someone to help you clear it?" Chike laughed softly. "Mama, must everything be about someone?" She chuckled. "I am your mother. I see when a man's heart is beating differently. I saw how you looked at that Nneka girl last night." Chike shifted uncomfortably. "She's just kind, Mama. Nothing more." Mama Chinyo stopped peeling and looked at him, her face turning serious. "Chike, kindness is no small thing. A woman who can bring peace to your heart is worth more than all the gold in the world. Think about that." The end of the beginning. That evening, Chike sat outside with Ibuka as the sun set over the village. Children chased each other in the distance, the scent of cooking fires mingling with the cool evening air. For the first time since his fall, he wasn't thinking of Adanna, the bank scandal, or the mocking headlines. He was thinking of the river, the way Nneka laughed, and the feeling of home that wrapped around him like a warm cloth. "Guy," Ibuka said, handing him a piece of roasted corn, "you see now. I talk this village go hear you." Chike smiled faintly. "Maybe it's not just the village, Ibuka. Maybe it's time I learn what real happiness looks like." Far away, a drumbeat began again, calling the villagers for the evening gathering. Chike stood, looking at the path that led to the square. He wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. The sun had set on his old life, but it was rising on something new.